Good evening. You are watching News Mongolian MNB World. I'm your host Jugdir Gambold. And for our top stories. Foreign trade turnover reached $11.8 billion in the first half of this year. Cabinet makes strategic decisions across multiple sectors. Mongolia and the FAO jointly address climate change and land degradation's impact on food security. For the news, stay with us. In the first half of this year, Mongolia traded with 143 countries, and the foreign trade turnover amounted to $11.8 billion, of which exports accounted for $7.6 billion and imports for $4.3 billion. Total turnover increased by $2.6 billion or 27.9%, export by $2.3 billion and import by $325.6 million compared to the same period of the previous year. In June of this year, exports increased by $88.4 million and import by $8.6 million or 1.1% compared to the previous month.
In the first half of 2023, the foreign trade balance amounted to $3.3 billion and profit increasing by $1.9 billion, 2.4-fold compared to the same period of the previous year. According to the National Statistics Office, this June the profit accounted for $472.7 million, which an increase of $79 million or 20% compared to the previous month. Trade with China in the first half of 2023 was around $8.6 billion, accounting for 73% of foreign trade turnover. Hard coal equaled 61.4% and copper concentrate accounted for 19%. Gold made up 99% of goods exported to Switzerland. In the first half of 2023, the growth of exports of coal by $2.1 billion, oil by $162.9 million, canned meat products by $82 million, fluorspar ore and concentrate by $70.8 million, iron ore and concentrate by $55.3 million, horse meat by $52 million, affected the increase of exports to the tune of $2.3 billion compared to the same period of last year. In June of this year, the average border price of gold decreased by 2.3 thousand per kilogram. Average border price of iron ore and concentrate dropped by $15.5 per ton. Average border price of coal decreased by $7.7 per ton, and the average border price of copper concentrate increased by $0.4 per ton. The physical volume of coal exports reached 5.6 million tons last June, 1.4 million tons more than the previous month, and amounted to $718.7 million, making an increase of $139 million. As of the first half of 2023, China accounted 39.2% of imports, Russia 26.6%, Japan 8%, South Korea 4.6%, the United States 3.6%, and Germany 2.5%, making up 84% of total imports. Petroleum products accounted for 71% of goods imported from Russia. Passenger cars made up 72% of goods imported from Japan, and trucks 10% of goods imported from China. Imports increased by $325.6 million compared to the same period of the previous year due to the growth in imported diesel fuel by $129.2 million, trucks by $68.4 million, passenger cars by $51 million, and bulldozers, ironers, levelers, and excavators by $31.5 million, respectively. Exports of mineral products, precious stones, metals, jewelry, and textile products accounted for 94.2% of total exports, while 77.2% of imports were mineral products, machinery, equipment, electrical appliances, transport vehicles, spare parts, basic metals, products thereof, and food products.
During its most recent sessions, the Mongolian cabinet addressed a range of significant topics, resulting in key decisions that span various sectors. Details in the following report.
Tawantala Railway LLC has been granted a 5-year special permit to initiate the foundational construction for the cross-border railway project from Qashunsohuat to Kansmat. This strategic move aims to bolster regional connectivity and streamline cross-border trade operations between Mongolia and China. In unanimous decision, the cabinet has endorsed the guidelines that will govern Mongolia's participation in the forthcoming 7th session of the Mongolia-United States Joint Trade and Investment Committee. Slated for August 29, 2023 in Ulaanbaatar, this session holds the potential to bolster trade partnerships and investment prospects between the two nations. Cabinet discussions extended to essential nuclear safety agreements, including the 1994 Convention on Nuclear Safety, the 1997 Joint Convention on the Safety of Spent Fuel Management, and on the Safety of Radioactive Waste Management, the 2005 Amendment to the Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Material, and the Safeguards Implementation Guide for States with Small Quantities Protocols. With cabinet backing, consultation with the relevant standing committee of the state grid are being planned.
The government of Mongolia, in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment and Tourism, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, convened a comprehensive meeting in Dondra province on August 24. The focus of the meeting was climate change, desertification, as well as land degradation, and the implication for the stability of the food value chain.
In her inaugural address, the Minister of Foreign Affairs Batitsik highlighted the pivotal role of Mongolia's long-term development policy, Vision 2050. This policy places agriculture at the forefront of the economy, emphasizing its environmentally conscious, climate-resilient, risk-bearing, and sustainably productive nature. She underscored the collaborative effort between Mongolia and the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization to establish a healthy and secure living environment for the Mongolian population. Mongolia officially became a member of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization on November 12, 1973. This affiliation aligns with the global mission of eradicating hunger, mitigating malnutrition, and ensuring robust food security for everyone. Over the decades, the Food and Agriculture Organization has significantly contributed to Mongolia's agriculture and food sectors. This year marks the 50th anniversary of collaboration. Against this backdrop, a summit has been convened to delve into pressing issues regarding climate change, desertification, and land degradation. These challenges resonate not only within Mongolia, but also on a global scale, warranting thorough discussion and analysis.
Please take a look at currency exchange rates provided by the Central Bank of Mongolia. Now here comes foreign news partnered with international news agencies. Pope Francis on Sunday described his visit later this week to Mongolia, the first ever pilgrimage by a pontiff to the East Asian country, as a much desired occasion to encounter a noble wise people. Speaking to the public in St. Peter's Square, Francis said the trip will be also an opportunity to embrace the Catholic community there, describing the church in Mongolia as small in numbers, but lively in the faith and great in charity.
The pilgrimage is also an opportunity to meet up close with the noble, wise people, he said. Francis departs on Thursday, returning to Rome 4 days later. There are fewer than 1,500 Catholics in Mongolia, where 3.2 million people live in one of the world's least densely populated countries. The Pope said Mongolia has a great religious tradition that he will have the honor to know, especially in the context of an interreligious event during the trip.
Next Thursday, I'll leave for a trip for several days to the heart of Asia, Mongolia. It is a much-desired visit, and it will be the chance to hug a church small in numbers, but lively in faith and big in charity, and also to meet with the noble, wise people with a great religious tradition, which I will be honored to meet, especially within an interreligious context. I would like to speak to you, brothers and sisters from Mongolia, to tell you that I'm glad to travel to be among you as brother of all. I thank you, your authorities, for the kind invitation, and thank you to all those who with great effort are preparing for my arrival. I share also a prayer for the victims of the wildfire blazing these days in northeast of Greece, and I express solidarity with the Greek people.
On September 3rd, his schedule includes an ecumenical and interreligious meeting. The largest percentage of Mongolia's people are Buddhist. In his remarks, Francis said he wanted to address brothers and sisters of Mongolia, telling that he's really happy to travel to be among Mongolians as a brother of all. He also asked the faithful in the square to accompany him in prayer during his trip. Francis also said he is praying for the people of Greece and the victims of wildfires in the northeast of the country. Finally, the pontiff reminded the faithful to pray for the suffering people of Ukraine.
Russia's investigative committee announced on Sunday it had confirmed Wagner mercenary group chief Yevgeny Prigozhin was killed in a plane crash. Committee spokeswoman Svetlana Petronka said in a statement that forensic testing identified all 10 bodies recovered at the site of Wednesday's crash, and the findings conform to the manifest of the plane.
As part of the investigation of the plane crash in the Tver region, molecular genetic examinations have been completed. According to their results, the identities of all 10 dead were established. They correspond to the list stated in the flight manifest. The statement didn't offer any details as to what might have caused the crash. Russia's Civil Aviation Authority earlier this week said Prigozhin, along with some of his top lieutenants, were on the list of the passengers and crew members on board the plane. Prigozhin, who's 62 years old, was killed 2 months after he mounted a day-long mutiny against Russia's military that President Vladimir Putin decried as treason. The Kremlin cut a deal with Prigozhin to end the armed revolt that allowed him to walk free without any charges levied against him. The brief uprising posed the biggest challenge to Putin's authority of his 23-year rule.
Please take a look at weather forecasts for the world's major cities. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying tuned. We'll see you next time with more news and updates. Have a good day.